Kregon's Dark World Presence, Day of Blood. Part 1 Day of Blood. The sun had barely risen above the horizon, casting long shadows across the train tracks as the father and son set out on their journey. The father's heart was heavy with worry for his daughter, who had left home after discovering forbidden books that he had warned her never to read. As they walked along the tracks, the father's mind raced with thoughts of what could have happened to his daughter. Was she alone? Was she safe? Would they ever find her? The son, barely old enough to understand the gravity of the situation, walked silently beside his father, his small hand clasped tightly in the older man's calloused grip. Hours turned into days as they trudged along the tracks, their supplies dwindling with each passing moment. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, but the father refused to let his son see his despair. They would find her, he promised himself, no matter what the cost. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they caught sight of a small town in the distance. The father's heart leapt with hope as they quickened their pace, eager to find any information about his missing daughter. But as they entered the town, their hopes were dashed. The streets were empty, the buildings abandoned. A sense of foreboding settled over the father, and he knew that they were not alone. It was then that they heard the first scream. The father's blood ran cold as he realized that they had stumbled into a trap. The town had been taken over by a cult of bloodthirsty fanatics, and they were not welcome. With no other options, the father and son fought for their lives, their journey to find the missing daughter taking a dark and violent turn. Blood flowed freely in the streets as the two battled their way through the cultists, driven by a fierce determination to survive. In the end, they emerged victorious, but at what cost? The father's body was battered and bruised, and the son's innocence shattered forever. But despite it all, they knew that their journey was not yet over. They would find the daughter, no matter what horrors lay ahead. Part 2 Blood of the Past. The father's mind drifted back to a time before the world fell into chaos and decay, when he and his daughter would sit together and she would read to him about a world that he barely recognized. It was a world of technology and progress, of abundance and plenty. It was a world that he knew his children would never know. He had made a conscious decision to raise his children without the knowledge of the old ways. He wanted them to grow up believing that the small town they lived in was the only world that existed. He didn't want them to know about the violence and desperation that lay beyond their borders, the constant battle for survival that consumed so many. But as he walked alongside his son, he knew that the truth could no longer be hidden. The world was a brutal, unforgiving place, where only the strongest survived. He had seen too much, experienced too much, to be able to hide the truth any longer. He had lied to his children about their mother, told them that she was with God in heaven. In reality, she had died shortly after their son was born, a victim of marauders who had swept through their small community. The father had been powerless to stop them, and had been forced to watch as they murdered his wife and destroyed everything that he held dear. Now, as he searched for his missing daughter, he felt a deep sense of guilt and remorse. He had failed to protect his family once before, and he was terrified that he would fail again. But he refused to give up hope. He would find his daughter, no matter what the cost. He owed her that much, after everything she had been through. As they journeyed deeper into the wasteland that had once been civilization, the father felt a growing sense of unease. He knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, that they would face dangers beyond anything they had ever imagined. But he was determined to see it through, for the sake of his daughter, and for the sake of his family. Part 3 Blood on the Tracks. As the father and son continued their journey along the train tracks, the son marveled at the unfamiliar landscape around them. He had never seen anything like it before, having spent his entire life in the small town where he was born. But his sense of wonder was short-lived. Suddenly, his father stumbled and sprained his ankle, causing him to cry out in pain. The son rushed to his side, panic and fear rising in his chest. For the first time in his life, the son was forced to take charge. He helped his father to his feet, and together they slowly made their way along the tracks. The father gritted his teeth in pain, but refused to give up. As they walked, the son found himself asking questions about the world outside their town. His father hesitated at first, unsure of how to answer, but eventually he relented. He told his son about the chaos and decay that had consumed the world, about the violence and desperation that had become a way of life for so many. He talked about the marauders and the dangers that lurked around every corner. For the first time in his life, the son began to understand the true nature of the world he was about to encounter. It was a terrifying realization, but one that he knew he would have to come to terms with if he was to survive. As they walked, the son helped his father as best he could, using his small frame to support the older man as they navigated the rough terrain. The son looked out at the desolate landscape, a mixture of fear and excitement rising in his chest. He knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, but he was determined to face it head-on, with his father by his side. It's a hell of a dark world when family leaves you for dead,